Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Budget Game Reviews. Today's subject of a cheap review is Outrun 2019. That's right, a racing game based off that distant date of 2019. And this is obviously for the MegaDrive. Now if we look around the box, we find something that's pretty basic, but also one that does not show off the party piece of this game. But we'll get onto that as we get into the game. But first, let's check the insides. We find a cart with the artwork based on the original box art, and we have a manual. And I have to say, I love it when these manuals used to give you these bit of text at the beginning. Just listen to a bit of this. You step on the accelerator, your car's tyres kick up a smoke and debris as they scrabble for grip on the road surface. The force of acceleration shoves you deep into your seat, and the walls of the surrounding tunnel become a blur. You switch out of low gear. And this goes on for 2 pages. The rest of this manual is just taken up with the basic controls, which it goes over in quite a lot of detail, especially when you think that this is actually a relatively simple racing game. Now, what it does have is 4 tracks. That's right, just 4 tracks. But being based on Outrun, they do have a bit of branching to them, though the branching is definitely not as complex as the original game. So with that in mind, let's boot it up and check it out. It was developed by Sims and published by Sega in 1993. And right off the bat, even the title screen has to use some fancy palette tricks. You're going to expect to see a lot of this type of thing in this game, which they obviously wanted to show us because even the attract mode kicks in very early. So we'll get the hint and just start the game up, and the first thing it asks you to do is either start with no name or enter your name for the high score table, which is a little bit surprising as it doesn't actually save the scores out to the cart. And before we get into the game itself proper, it has to show us what the stage 1 looks like, and as we can see, it's not the most complex looking thing. Not when viewed against the original Outrun, but at least we have some branching paths to look forward to. You start each race in the tunnel, which does give you this nice long straight for you to get up to speed. And to speed you will get. Again, the game is in a hurry to show off its special effects, and just watch as the road splits into 2 and you start to go up on this bridge. That is quite impressive. And you can see the other road just below you as well. And all of this without using any polygons. This is purely using the base hardware with its tiles and its sprites. In many ways, this might be the most advanced racing game on the MegaDrive. And don't just think that these bridges are decorative. You can actually fall off the side, and on later levels you can actually launch yourself from a lower level up to the upper level. It is quite impressive. And with the bridge flying behind us, we get these wide open roads that indicate that a split is coming up. And it is quite easy to go off the side of the road, because you're going so fast. As with the original Outrun, you are timed, and as you finish a stage, you'll get more time. I will say though, it's not the most difficult racing game you'll ever come across. Once you learn how to control your speed, the rest of the game will fall before you pretty quickly. And you can pretty much finish it in about 30 minutes. But in that time, they will pretty much throw everything at you as we go back into this undulating tunnel that curves around as well. And just look at all those scaled sprites. It really does help give a great sense of distance and speed. And we'll quickly find that those builders who couldn't be bothered to put barriers all along the bridges were up to their old tricks again, and they couldn't even be bothered to finish making the road. Though they did find the time to put these jumps in, so you didn't have to slowly crawl across the grass. And I do have to say, it's still pretty impressive how the 2 roads merge back together again to form this one great big highway. Most racing games could barely handle a single track, and this does too with ease. And it shouldn't take too long before you finish the race and manage to hit the goal. And with a little bit of a fanfare, the game starts to show its other Outrun influence, as it proceeds to show our route through the stage. Each of the stages are themed, but it doesn't really go past the visualization, as it doesn't tend to have much in the way of unique obstacles or tricks per the stage. Instead, they just try and ramp up the difficulty with having more extreme curves, having the stages themselves being overall longer, and having more cars on the track. This is definitely a game that's had more time and effort put into the fancy racing engine than into the rest of the actual gameplay. But what they did add is their own unique take on the boost up mechanic. When you're at full speed, you'll start to see a yellow bar going through the speedometer. And when it completely fills up, it'll kick in the rocket booster, and you'll really go flying. And interestingly, when you seem to hit objects going at that speed, it doesn't really knock you off the track quite as badly, so it is quite useful to have, but it's very difficult to handle the curves when you're going at the full speed. This is where handling your acceleration really becomes important. Or at least knowing when to tap the brake button. On top of the stages branching out into their multiple routes, some of the routes themselves will actually have a few branches of their own. And there is something very special about seeing that alternate route go up or below you. And if you're not careful, you can either fall from an upper route down to the lower one, or even send yourself from the lower one back up to the top. These upper and lower paths are very impressive, but I feel if they actually had you fighting for position, it really could have come into the gameplay even more. Each of the stages has its own bit of music, but if you didn't like it and wanted to listen to a different one, then there is actually a secret hidden menu that you can select which track you want to listen to. Well, I say secret, but they actually do mention it in the manual, and it mentions that you should hold down the A, B and C button when you're on the try again or next stage screen. Though it seems just holding down the C button might be enough for you to get this menu. Why this was a hidden menu, I am not entirely sure. You'd think they'd just have it off that main menu. I mentioned that the game liked to do some palette tricks, and this is really shown off on the last set of levels. With it going from day to night, but also when you start going through the tunnels when at night as well. It's a simple trick, but one that does work really quite nicely. And I think that's pretty much the last trick this game had in its bag. It's definitely not the greatest racing game you'll ever come across, but it is pretty impressive with what they've done with it. So check it out if you're looking for an interesting, if short, racing game. And until next time, I've been the Goldfish, that is going over 600 miles an hour, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching this budget game review. I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got memories of this game, good or bad, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed the video, then there's buttons below that you know what to do with. Or if you're not sure yet, then there's 2 other videos on screen that you can check out right now.